With Super Bowl 57 looming, it's easy for many fans to take a break from their NFL addiction. This past Sunday, many football fans probably walked their dogs, called their moms, and maybe enjoyed a nice nap. I can tell you one thing, a vast majority of them didn't care about what was going on in Vegas. But what was going on in Vegas was kind of fun.
After years of fans complaining about how the NFL's Pro Bowl was basically a glorified flag football game, the NFL finally removed the pads and turned the Pro Bowl into a field day-esque competition between the NFC and AFC. The league introduced a variety of games and skill challenges, but things got started with some dodgeball that got all the classic gym class vibes flowing.
Oh yeah, and these games started off with the boom, as the AFC offense faced the defense for a chance to face off against their other conference. It was all about the running backs and safeties this game, and Josh Jacobs was the last man standing on the offensive end. However, Minka was playing like he was coached by Patches O'Houlihan out there, dodging, ducking, diving, and dodging some more. Him and Chargers star Derwin James would ultimately lead the AFC defense to a W. In the second game, the NFC offense faced off against the defense, and the Nittany Lion talent on the field did not start off well, as Micah immediately sprinted full speed to the line and frantically grabbed all the balls. However, amidst his distraction of supplying the ammo for his squad, he instantly crossed the middle line and was eliminated, which then he would proceed to have a hilariously unsuccessful tantrum with the referees who, at the end of the day, would just rule him out. He just straight up hustled too hard out there, Hans, and that's what happens. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, Saquon started off hot, eliminating a few key defensive players. However, with stellar performances from studs on the NFC defense like my guy Tariq Woolen and linebacker Demario Davis, Quads would soon find himself as the only NFC player remaining. He then made a clutch catch, and it was down to just him and Demario. Davis would continue to pepper Barkley with nice shots, while Saquon used his athleticism to juke out the rubber. I was disgusted by the finale of this game, however, as eventually Davis would nail Barkley in the head for the game-winning point, but just like gym class, as you mentioned earlier, Saquon decided to be that one annoying dork who complains to the teacher about headshots and gets that free win. You know what I'm talking about, that was my face, kid. After an official review, this is exactly what ended up happening. Your boy Saquon would walk off with possibly the corniest move in the sport of dodgeball.
Say what you want, but rules are rules. All I saw was a fiery competitor who respects the integrity of the sport. Total Bush League stuff from Demario and a well-deserved win that sends Saquon and the boys to the finals. And you know what? We saw that ball doesn't lie because the NFC came out firing in the championship game. Things got started with Kyle Juszczyk picking up a nice two-piece on Sauce and Marlon Humphrey. And you could just tell that both their egos took a hit getting eliminated by a fullback. Nice to see Juice showing off that arm for Kyle Shanahan, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see them pull out a fullback pass next season. Later on, we get a 4v2 situation. The AFC has their back against the wall when Myles Garrett catches a CMC throw and then tosses a bullet at George Kittle, who deflects it away. Then, on a controversial technicality, Garrett gets eliminated because he stepped out of bounds. Maybe Myles would have fared better if he were throwing helmets and that was Mason Rudolph on the opposite end of the field. This sets up the NFC in a nice 3-on-1. And I don't know if you can hear it in the video, but Eli Manning comes in with the elite coaching and sets up the textbook, everybody throw the ball at once play, which knocks out Minka and secures a win for the NFC.
And the next event wasn't nearly as exciting, if we're going to be honest, as it consisted of a water balloon toss, then catching some punts, and finally a dunk tank that ended up with Eli Manning getting confetti poured on him, which I know you love to see. The highlights from these events are pretty much just that Terry McLaurin really is that dude, as he had a ridiculous water balloon catch, and also watching Joel Bitonio catch punts was pretty funny. After this lightning round of games, the players hit the golf course for a long drive contest. The guys seemed like they were having a good time on the links, and a few shocking deep balls from Zadarius Smith, who had never played golf before, and TJ Hawkinson, who watched YouTube videos to help his swing, made this event a little bit more interesting. However, when the game was on the line, Jordan Poyer showed why his handicap soars down to a 3 from a 13 during the offseason and crushed an absolute missile down the fairway for the win. Although this event was fun, I would have loved to have guys like Nick Chubb or Derrick Henry out there, because I really just feel like they could crush that thing.
Next up, we have the Precision Passing Challenge, which consisted of different passing targets with all different point totals. Some of my favorites included the 5-point drone and the 10-point deep ball. We saw Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, and Geno Smith competing for the NFC, and on the AFC side, we got Derek Carr, Trevor Lawrence, and of course, everybody's favorite Ravens quarterback, Tyler Huntley. Huntley actually finished second on the squad with 21, although I'm not so sure about those 2 deep balls they gave him credit for at the start. Seemed a little inaccurate to me, but I'll allow it. Trevor Lawrence finished with 19 after a hot start was cooled down by a 20-second stretch with no points, and it was a little reminiscent of Uncle Rico slinging that thing in the backyard. On the NFC side, Geno and Jared Goff did solid, putting up 20 and 21 points respectively. But like he has so many times, Kirk Cousins let his team down, putting up the worst score among every player with 14. He just couldn't seem to get anything going. So I don't think we'll be seeing him dancing draped in gold chains after this one. All jokes aside, let's get to the main highlight from this event, Derek Carr, who you just knew was the one guy secretly taking this super seriously. And it showed because he put on a show for every team in the quarterback market this offseason, putting up 31 points in a walk-off performance to give the AFC the win. They asked him afterwards if he'd ever been that hot, and he said no. That's probably why I'm going somewhere else. It's interesting seeing Derek Carr tap into his villain arc a little with all these trade talks, so I'm definitely excited to see where he ends up for next season.
Man, I loved watching that drone target fly around during that thing. To me, it wasn't really even about the scores. I just wanted to see people hit the drone. But speaking of flying objects, getting airborne and making the flashiest play was what the next game was all about, as 2 of the best receivers in the league faced off for the nicest grab. The panel of judges was definitely an interesting cast of characters, as Snoop Doggy Dogg teamed up with NFL legend LaDainian Tomlinson and Mr. Riz himself, Pete Davidson. And not to hate on Pete Davidson, but after everything that's been going on this year with this guy, do we really need to be giving him like this honor and make him a judge for this? Like, I think he's already lived out most of my dreams, and now he's getting to judge this sweet contest with Snoop and LT. But hey, good for him, I guess. I hate to talk about the judges so much also, but these guys were really the stars of the show in this event, as the catches throughout this contest by Amon-Ra St. Brown and Stephon Diggs were probably worse than some snags that they had during the season. Of course, both players did involve their siblings in this game, and this was fun, as the St. Browns teamed up on a highlight grab, and Trayvon Diggs was clowning his big brother Steph for dropping a wide open catch. To which, by the way, our judges, hate to bring them up again, all gave over 70s to, a drop in the best catch contest. Look, I don't know if these guys were hanging out at Snoop's before this event or something, but they were throwing some wild scores out there. I mean, Diggs ended up with 140 out of 200 points, and I'm pretty sure he dropped both passes. The drops wouldn't end up being enough, though, as Amon-Ra's 2 catches for a combined score of 185 would get him the win. Overall, this event was like many of the others during the weekend, being that it was definitely goofy, but at the same time, I kind of liked it.
The last few events I'll talk about weren't as memorable, but had some funny moments. The 2 relay-type events got the offensive and defensive lines involved, with the AFC winning Move the Chains and the NFC taking home the Gridiron Gauntlet. I enjoyed the kick-tack-toe event, which got all the special teamers involved, opening the door for Titans long snapper Morgan Cox to secure the win and let everyone know that long snappers are people too.
After all the other festivities in Vegas, on Sunday afternoon it was finally time to wrap up the weekend with a whole new type of Pro Bowl, a Pro Bowl with flags. Game 1 started out with probably the most surprising selection for this weekend, driving down the field and connecting with this guy Mark Andrews for 6. Yup, Tyler Huntley was balling out there, and the Utah grad would ultimately put up 4 TDs, doubling his regular season total. On the other side of the ball, that dude Geno was cooking as well, getting things going with a laser to Kittle on the out route that would then turn upfield and score, narrowly avoiding getting his flags pulled by the AFC's Patrick Surtain and Matt Judon. After getting absolutely blitzed by Micah Parsons on the next drive, the AFC would then turn it over, and Geno would instantly make them pay with a beautiful fade to CD for another NFC score, which would prompt the team gritty consisting of every player in the end zone. Huntley would then drive down the field again before hitting his security blanket, Mark Andrews, for yet another touchdown. But the shootout wasn't over, as Geno would then deliver a comeback player of the year type throw between 3 defenders to TJ Hawkinson, who would go on to beat Matt Milano with his legs and take it to the house. The very next play, the Minnesota tight end then proceeded to moss Pat Surtain and secure the conversion for an 8-point AFC lead. The AFC would then quickly respond with Vegas' own Tay Adams making a solid catch and move before lateraling it to Tyreek Hill, who would be decked in the end zone by Jalen Ramsey. He came in flying like Sean Taylor in 06, absolutely leveling the cheetah and prompting one of the only flags of the game. That guy Ramsey, man, he just never turns it off. Huntley would then go right back to Tay for the 2-point conversion that would tie the game going into half. The second half started with more of the same as we saw Geno carve up the AFC defense again, this time using the speedy Cowboys punt returner Kevontae Turpin to help get downfield, and a touchdown catch from Kyle Juszczyk to finish off another long drive. The AFC offense didn't slow down either, however, as Tyler Huntley would use a fresh off the bench King Henry and a wide open Jamar Chase in the end zone to get 6 points right back, and Jamar then celebrated with the second gritty of the game. With just over a minute and a half, the NFC would get the ball back. And you know what they say, Hans, never leave Geno with too much time on the clock.
I don't think anybody says that.
Well, guess what? They should. Because the Seahawks QB came up big on this last drive and delivered a clutch throw to CD, who would then juke Derwin James out of his beanie en route to score a TD that would ice the game for the NFC.
Game 2 got started with the Jair Alexander pick six off of Trevor Lawrence to put the NFC up quickly. Maybe T-Law should have taken some advice from Dan Orlovsky on that play and just ran out of bounds for the safety. Trevor did recover nicely though with a methodical touchdown drive to tie the game. The AFC quickly tacked on another score from 10 yards out. It's always a little questionable when you pull out the rushing game in a flag football, but I guess I have to respect it. The AFC defense got involved with a Pat Surtain interception that set them up deep in NFC territory. But things took a quick swing when Trayvon Diggs secured long-term bragging rights over his older brother after intercepting a Stephon Diggs pass and bringing it just short of the end zone. On the ensuing possession, Jared Goff would find Dalvin Cook to punch it in for the score, and then just barely connected with his former teammate TJ Hawkinson on the conversion to put the NFC ahead 13-12. That lead wouldn't last though, as T-Law connected with Stephon Diggs on a perfectly placed deep ball in the end zone, and all his younger brother could do was watch. The score put the AFC up 18-13 and ultimately secured the win. Trayvon might have that interception, but it had to feel good for Stephon to get the last laugh. At this point, the AFC was up 21-15 throughout all the Pro Bowl events, and for the flag football finale, that would be the score to start the game. Tyreek Hill started things off exactly like you would expect, with a huge pass deflection on 4th and goal. But Derek Carr would immediately gift the ball back to Budda Baker and set the NFC up for an Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown to tie the game at 21. The AFC would respond with Jamar Chase doing what he does best, making a tough catch and putting the ball in the end zone. On the next drive for the NFC, they must have saw what Juszczyk was doing on the dodgeball court because they let him rip it for a long completion to Jettas that set up the offense in a goal-to-goal situation. Juice would end up punching it in for the score to put the NFC up 28-27 at the half, and they would continue to find success as Kirk would connect with George Kittle for a touchdown and then find his guy Justin Jefferson on a scramble for the point after to make the score 35-27. On the following drive, Carr would find Dawson Knox on 4th and goal to pull within 2. Unfortunately, on the next drive, the AFC defense would call for a holding on 4th down that ended up giving the win to the NFC in not only that game, but the Pro Bowl games as a whole.
Wow, it truly was a crazy finish in that final game for the NFC to not only take home the flag football victory, but also win the weekend. The stars really did shine in the desert this year, and the games were overall pretty awesome. Even though I love him, I really don't want to keep talking about Geno every week. But when this man drops 239 and 5 TDs in the flag game, how can I not? Seattle Smith delivered an amazing performance, tearing up the AFC's defense and leading his conference to the W with this truly remarkable stat line. It is no surprise that he is my MVP. As the NFC walked off the field with the victory in hand this year and I got up off my couch, I felt a little different than I usually do after a Pro Bowl weekend. I think I was even smiling, which is surprising considering that usually during the Pro Bowl I'd be aimlessly scrolling on my phone, bored out of my mind. I'm not sure what it was this year that made this event feel so different. The new events, the banter amongst the players and coaches, or the all-around weirdness. But, Hans, it sure was fun.
It may not be the bloodbath that a lot of NFL fans wish it was, but I did like this as an alternative to the joke the game has become over the years. At the end of the day, the Pro Bowl simply serves as an appetizer to the gourmet meal that is the Super Bowl, which after much anticipation will take place this Sunday in Arizona.